Welcome to RTV Global Network. Today's deep dive features Mark and Sarah. Welcome, everyone.
Yeah, thanks so much for tuning in.
Right, so today is August 4th, 2026, and this deep dive is proudly brought to you by the RTV Global Network.
Absolutely. And for those of you listening right now, we really have quite a mission today.
We really do. We are looking at this massive stack of sources that, at first glance, it just looked like completely unrelated chaos.
Yeah, it really seems all over the place.
Exactly. We are talking about severe, life-threatening weather emergencies and systemic prison crises right here in Sri Lanka.
Right.
But then we also have these massive multi-billion-dollar shakeups in the global sports world and, even unexpected shifts in Middle Eastern geopolitics.
It sounds totally disconnected, yeah.
But as we dig into this for you, you're going to see how they all actually connect. So, okay, let's unpack this because the sheer variety of today's information is just staggering, and I am incredibly excited to get into it.
It is a massive stack of information. No doubt. But there's a very, very clear through line here.
Which is what, exactly?
Well, whether we are discussing a flooded local school or, say, a geopolitical standoff over global oil supplies, we are fundamentally looking at systems under immense pressure.
Right. Systems just completely stressed out.
Exactly. We are watching what happens when the infrastructure that we rely on every single day is pushed way past its breaking point.
Wow. Okay. Well, let's start right there with the infrastructure literally breaking under pressure just outside our doors.
Yeah, the weather situation.
Right. The extreme weather front hitting Sri Lanka right now is, it's not just a passing storm. It is an immediate physical crisis.
It really is.
We are seeing places like Nuwara Eliya and Hatton recording 125 millimeters of rainfall in just 24 hours. Now, I hear that number, and I know it sounds like a lot, but what does 125 millimeters actually do to the ground in these areas?
That is the critical question, really, because the number alone just doesn't tell the whole story. When you talk about 125 millimeters of rain in a single 24-hour period, especially up in the Central Highlands, you're talking about total soil saturation.
So the ground just can't take any more water.
Exactly. The soil acts like a sponge, right? And once it cannot absorb any more water, that water has to go somewhere.
And in the hill country, that's a huge problem.
Right, because the topography is so steep. That runoff creates this immense hydrostatic pressure against the slopes. The infrastructure there, like the retaining walls, the terrace slopes, the roadways, they simply aren't engineered to handle that volume and velocity of water all at once.
Wow. And we're seeing the catastrophic human cost of that failure right now.
Yeah, unfortunately we are.
In Hatton, specifically in the Morahanagama area of Polpia, a massive earth mound just completely gave way. It collapsed right onto a house.
That's awful.
It is. And the latest updates confirm that 4 people are currently missing.
It is just a devastating reality. When a system fails at that level, a meteorological event instantly becomes this highly localized human tragedy.
Yeah, it becomes about real lives, not just weather data.
Exactly. And it triggers a massive chain reaction in the state's response mechanism, too.
Right. The military gets called in.
Yeah, specifically the Army. They have had to be deployed into these really treacherous conditions for rescue and recovery operations. We are talking about nearly 3,000 people currently affected, displaced, or in danger just because of this weather front.
3,000 people. That is huge. And the ripple effects, they just keep expanding by the hour.
What's the latest on the rivers?
Well, the Department of Irrigation just issued major flood warnings because the water levels in both the Kalani and Kalio rivers are steadily rising.
Wow. Are they expecting it to clear up soon?
Well, the meteorologists are predicting that the rains should ease by tomorrow afternoon, but the secondary impacts are wild. Schools in Kandy and Nuwara Eliya are completely shut down.
Makes sense. It's just not safe.
Right. And then the Colombo-Kandy main road at Kataganawa had to be shut down because of a rock fall.
Oh, wow. Did they clear it?
They did, yeah. They managed to clear it and reopen it. But it just shows how fragile our main transport arteries actually are.
Absolutely.
But here is the detail that absolutely stopped me in my tracks today.
Oh, what is it?
Out on the southern seas, the Fisheries Department has had to issue an official warning to the fishing community about floating shipping containers.
Wait, really? Floating shipping containers?
Yes.
Out in the ocean?
That is a perfect example of how boundaries between different types of crises are completely porous.
Right, like how does a rainstorm lead to that?
Exactly. You have terrestrial flooding, like heavy rains on land, somehow leading to maritime navigation hazards. Shipping containers are being swept into the waterways and ending up in the open ocean.
That is terrifying for a small fishing boat.
Oh, it creates a massive, totally unpredictable physical threat to multi-day fishing trawlers. It's incredibly dangerous.
I keep thinking about our national infrastructure as this giant Jenga tower.
Oh, that's a great way to put it. Right. Because it looks solid from a distance, but it is actually incredibly precarious. You pull one block out, like a flooded road in the hills, and suddenly you have displaced families in Hatton, closed schools in Kandy, military deployments, and somehow floating shipping containers threatening fishermen in the ocean.
It really is all connected.
And sitting right at the top of this wobbling Jenga tower are the national exams.
Oh, right, the AL and Grade 5 scholarship exam.
Exactly. For anyone listening who might be unfamiliar, these aren't just, regular pop quizzes.
Oh, these are huge.
Yeah, these are the high-stakes, future-defining standardized tests for Sri Lankan students. And because of the weather, the government has had to put disaster teams on standby with a special national plan just so these kids can take their tests.
That's unbelievable.
Right. So I have to ask, are we just stuck in this perpetual reaction mode? Or is there a way to actually build a country where a rainstorm doesn't threaten the entire education system?
Well, moving away from that perpetual reaction mode, it requires a total paradigm shift in how a country views resilience.
What do you mean?
Well, when you are forced to deploy the Defense Ministry and National Disaster Management teams just to facilitate a high school math exam, your system is redlining.
It really is.
Think about the logistics involved there. You have to secure the physical exam papers from water damage. You have to ensure safe physical transport for thousands of students and invigilators across roads that might, experience rock falls.
Right, like we saw in Kandy and Nuwara.
Exactly. And you have to guarantee uninterrupted power and communications at exam centers that might literally be under 3 feet of water.
Wait, I have to jump in here. If the Central Highlands are geographically prone to this, if we know the monsoons come and we know the hill country soil gets saturated, why are we still reacting to it as if it's a surprise every year?
Because retrofitting legacy infrastructure is incredibly expensive.
Right, it always comes back to money.
It does. It requires long-term capital allocation that most governments really struggle to maintain across election cycles. Building a retaining wall or, say, redesigning a drainage system in Kaduganawa, it doesn't generate immediate revenue.
It just stops things from breaking later.
Exactly. It just prevents a future loss. And when a country is managing multiple economic pressures simultaneously, preventative maintenance often gets pushed way down the priority list until a rockfall actually blocks the Colombo-Kandy road.
Which brings us directly to the money. When that Jenga tower wobbles, when the roads wash away and the crops are flooded, it costs billions to put it back together.
Billions, easily.
And right now, Sri Lanka is walking a very strange economic tightrope. On one hand, we are deploying massive safety nets.
Right, like the international loans.
Yeah, the Asian Development Bank, the ADB, just approved $200 million in emergency assistance.
That is a massive injection of capital.
It is, and this is specifically mapped out for post-cyclone Ditwa recovery, but it is also intended to tackle macroeconomic impacts bleeding over from the Middle East. And then locally, the Committee on Public Finance, the KPS, just approved a 71.7 billion rupee relief package.
Let's actually break down what the Committee on Public Finance does, because it's vital here for you listening to understand this.
Yeah, please do.
The KPF is the parliamentary watchdog that scrutinizes how public funds are collected and spent. When they approve a 71.7 billion rupee package, that is a massive fiscal intervention.
So they are opening the state wallet, essentially.
Exactly. It means the government is actively injecting capital to stabilize the domestic environment. The ADB's $200 million operates on a similar logic, but at the international level.
How so?
Well, it provides the foreign exchange necessary to rebuild physical infrastructure destroyed by the cyclone, while also acting as a buffer against external shocks.
Okay, well, let's talk about domestic stabilization for a second, because we also have the Paddy Marketing Board stepping in and purchase 15,000 metric tons of the Yalla harvest.
That is a lot of rice.
It is. So, for anyone who might not follow agricultural markets closely, why is a government body buying up massive amounts of rice? Is this just about food security, or is there a deeper economic mechanism at play here?
It is definitely a mechanism of market stabilization, and it's deeply tied to everything we just discussed about vulnerability.
Okay, how does that work?
Well, during the harvest season, the sudden influx of supply can completely crash prices.
Which would hurt the farmers?
It would financially devastate them. By stepping in as a guaranteed buyer for 15,000 metric tons, the Paddy Marketing Board basically sets a floor price. It protects the agricultural sector's income.
That makes sense.
But here's the catch. To do that, the government needs liquidity. It needs cash.
Which is where this massive economic paradox really comes into play.
Right.
We are taking out hundreds of millions in emergency loans and relief packages. But if you look at the other side of the ledger, the economy looks like it is absolutely roaring.
It's such a strange contrast.
It really is. We have welcomed 1.3 million tourists in 2026 so far. The Institute of International Finance just released data showing Sri Lanka is rapidly climbing the global investor relations ranking.
They're becoming a leader in debt transparency, actually.
Right. So I have to ask, if we have 1.3 million tourists spending foreign currency, why do we need a $200 million bailout from the ADB? Like, where is all the money going?
It is a phenomenal question. And, the tourism revenue is indeed flowing in, and that improved investor relations ranking is a crucial signal that international markets are finally regaining trust in Sri Lanka's fiscal management.
Right, which is great news.
It is, but you have to look at the scale of the debt obligations and the structural deficits. The revenue from 1.3 million tourists is essentially just servicing existing debt.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and it's covering the day-to-day import costs of fuel, medicine, and food. It doesn't leave a massive surplus for rebuilding a cyclone-devastated region or absorbing a global oil price shock.
So it's like a leaky bucket. We have this incredible flow of water coming in at the top. Tourism is booming. The IF is praising our transparency. But the bucket is full of holes.
Very expensive hole.
Right. We are leaking capital to pay off old debts, and we are leaking capital every time extreme weather wipes out a road. But here is the most alarming hole in the bucket. The National Chamber of Exporters, the NCE, has issued a stark warning that severe labor shortages are actively threatening Sri Lanka's export growth.
This is a huge issue.
I just don't get it. How do we have a labor shortage in a country trying to economically recover?
Because the bucket is leaking at the foundation. You can pour as much ADB funding into the top as you want, but if you don't have the human capital to run the factories, process the exports, and actually drive the industrial sector, your economic growth hits a hard ceiling.
So where did everyone go?
Well, over the past few years of economic volatility, there has been a significant brain drain. Skilled and semi-skilled workers just migrated looking for stability.
Oh, right. And we are actually seeing the corporate sector desperately trying to plug that specific hole.
Yes, they are getting creative.
They really are. The Returnship Alliance just launched Sri Lanka's first returnship ecosystem.
That's a fascinating program.
It is. From what I understand, this is a highly targeted initiative to bring professionals, specifically those who took career breaks, like mothers or retirees, back into the workforce.
Right. It's not just a feel-good HR program.
Not at all. It's an absolute economic necessity at this point.
Exactly. When the state is totally overwhelmed managing macroeconomic debt and natural disasters, the private sector has to innovate to survive. This returnship ecosystem is a direct mechanism to tap into unused labor pools.
And the corporate momentum doesn't stop there. CE8 Kalani just held its Autobahn 3.0 awards to recognize their top dealers.
Which shows real movement in the automotive supply chain.
Right. And the Institute of Certified Management Accountants, CMA Sri Lanka, has opened applications for their 2026 Integrated Reporting Awards.
Pushing for even more corporate transparency.
Exactly. And the foreign direct investment is actually very visible right now. Mahindra is making a massive push showcasing the future of electric mobility here.
EVs are going to be huge.
Yeah. And then a Maldivian real estate firm, One Realty, is expanding operations into Katawatha. We even have the global trucking giant Dongfeng officially launching in Sri Lanka in partnership with Euro Motors.
That's a massive partnership.
It really is. Plus, key stakeholders have finally agreed to proceed with the Trincomalee oil pipeline project.
Let's actually isolate the Dongfeng launch and the Trincomalee pipeline for a minute, because those are not just corporate PR updates.
What are they then?
They are major geopolitical anchors. Dongfeng is a massive Chinese state-owned automotive manufacturer. Their entry into the commercial trucking sector in Sri Lanka signals long-term confidence in the logistics and transport infrastructure here.
And what about the Trincomalee oil pipeline? I mean, that project has been debated for years.
It has been. The Trincomalee oil tank farm and pipeline project is literally one of the most strategically significant energy assets in the Indian Ocean.
Really? Why is that?
Well, developing it means enhancing national energy security, obviously, but it also tightly weaves Sri Lanka into regional energy grids. Moving forward with it is a massive signal to global energy markets that Sri Lanka is finally ready to build durable infrastructure.
Wow. But the people tasked with building that durable infrastructure, the ones managing the ADB loans, the labor shortages, the energy pipelines, they are currently locked in some immense structural friction of their own.
That's putting it mildly.
Right. If we want to understand why a local road doesn't get fixed, we have to look at the political machinery.
Because politics is the mechanism through which all these resources are prioritized and distributed. And right now, the political landscape is attempting to juggle massive legacy-defining constitutional changes while the day-to-day administration is under severe strain.
Right. Let's lay out exactly what is happening at the top for you. President Anura Kumara Dissanayake has been incredibly active.
Very busy schedule.
Yeah, he recently held a high-stakes meeting with an alliance of 6 Tamil and Muslim political parties, where he firmly reaffirmed the need to abolish the executive presidency.
Now, just to be clear, we are just looking at the facts here objectively, but that is a massive proposal.
Exactly. We aren't taking sides on whether it's good or bad. But this isn't just a small policy tweak. This is a fundamental rewiring of how power operates in the country.
Absolutely.
And at the same time, he's also been meeting with the Sri Lanka Cricket Transformation Committee.
The contrast there is just fascinating to me.
How so?
Well, on one hand, you have the goal of abolishing the executive presidency. That's a constitutional debate that has dominated Sri Lankan politics for over 40 years. It represents a massive decentralization of power.
Right.
But on the other hand, the president is simultaneously sitting down and meeting with the Cricket Administration Committee.
Right. I saw that and thought, why is the head of state involved in sports administration when we are managing emergency ADB loans and literal floods?
Well, because in South Asia, cricket administration is rarely just about sports.
What else is it about?
It is deeply intertwined with national identity, massive commercial revenue, and a lot of political prestige. But it really illustrates the immense breadth of issues the executive office is expected to manage simultaneously.
And while the president is making these moves, the opposition is calibrating its own stance.
Oh, definitely.
Harsha De Silva made a very public statement refusing a government crossover. He pointedly noted that the government is clearly searching for people with his specific economic expertise.
It's a very public flex of political capital, isn't it?
It really is. But beneath this high-level maneuvering, there is a serious, grinding controversy over the provincial council elections.
The delay of the provincial council elections is a critical structural issue.
And a recent fact check has completely debunked the most common excuse used for the delay.
Oh, what did they find?
Well, the public is often told that the elections are delayed because the government simply doesn't have the money to run them. But the fact check stated flatly, that is false. It cannot be about the money.
That changes the narrative completely.
Right. So if it's not financial, what happens when you just pause an entire layer of government?
You create a huge administrative vacuum.
Really? How so?
The provincial councils are designed to be the layer of government closest to the daily lives of the citizens. They manage regional health, rural roads, local education.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So when they aren't functioning, all of those local grievances don't just disappear, they get pushed upward. They bypass the missing middle layer and land directly on the desk of the central government.
Overwhelming the very people trying to manage the macroeconomy and constitutional reform.
Exactly.
And we can see those grassroots issues piling up right now. The Communist Party is openly urging the president to act immediately on the Indian trawler issue.
That's a really tense situation.
It is. For those who aren't aware, this is an ongoing crisis where foreign trawlers are heavily affecting the livelihoods of Jaffna fishermen. They are essentially scraping the seabed and completely depleting the fish stocks.
Which is a huge economic hit to the region.
Right. Then, on the civic administration side, the Office of the Commission on Public Sector Salaries and Pensions officially opens tomorrow to start tackling much-needed reforms.
That will be a massive undertaking.
Huge. We're even seeing policy shifts regarding daily commutes, with new plans being drawn up for motorcycle-only lanes on major roads to address severe traffic and safety issues.
It is the ultimate governance balancing act.
It really sounds like it.
I mean, the central government is being asked to manage the geopolitical implications of foreign trawlers in northern waters, restructure the pensions for the entire civil service, and figure out where motorcycles should drive, all while attempting to rewrite the Constitution.
And here is where I see the system flashing red. When the central government is stretched that thin, the safety nets start to snap.
Yeah, things slip through the cracks.
A leading medical specialist has just come forward with a terrifying warning. Drug regulation in the country has essentially collapsed.
That is incredibly dangerous.
It is. The mechanisms designed to vet and control the pharmaceuticals entering the market are failing, putting patients' lives at active risk.
The collapse of drug regulation is perhaps the most visceral example of an overstretched administrative state.
Why is it so hard to maintain?
Well, the regulation of pharmaceuticals requires a highly specialized, fiercely independent, and really well-resourced bureaucracy. It requires laboratory testing, supply chain auditing, and strict border controls.
Wait, stop there. How does a drug regulation system just, collapse? Are we talking about illegal smuggling, or are we talking about the official channels failing?
It is usually a combination of both, actually, and it's driven by a lack of resources.
Okay, unpack that for me.
When the state lacks the foreign currency or the administrative capacity to efficiently procure high-quality medicines through official channels, shortages occur. And nature abhors a vacuum, and so does the market.
So bad actors step in.
Exactly. Unregistered, untested, and often substandard drugs flood in to fill that gap. If the regulatory body doesn't have the personnel or the funding to aggressively police the pharmacies and the ports, the vetting process breaks down completely.
That is terrifying.
It really is.
And it points to a broader cultural friction, too. While we are dealing with life-or-death regulatory failures in medicine, the public discourse gets hijacked by these bizarre, hyperlocal controversies.
Oh, like what?
Well, there was a massive uproar recently because a memento given to an underage student at an event featured a half-naked female image.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, parents completely went off and it became a huge news story.
I mean, it sounds trivial compared to collapsed drug regulations, sure, but it stems from the same root issue.
Which is what?
A breakdown in institutional oversight.
What?
Whether it's the importation of medicine or the vetting of materials distributed in a school environment, it suggests that the checks and balances within the system are failing because the people running them are just overwhelmed.
So we have an administration stretched to the breaking point. But what happens when the system designed to enforce the rules, the justice system, is actually the most broken part of the entire structure?
It gets really grim.
We have to look at the courts and the prisons because the numbers here are genuinely alarming.
The judicial and penal systems are tightly coupled. They really operate like an hourglass.
How do you mean?
Well, the police and the society pour cases into the top, the courts are the narrow neck that processes them, and the prisons are the bottom where the results are stored. When the neck of the hourglass gets clogged, the entire system shatters.
Wow. Let me give you all the headline statistic here because it is staggering. 72% of the prison population currently consists of unconvicted remand inmates.
72%.
Nearly 3/4 of the people locked in cages right now have not been found guilty of a crime. They are just waiting for a trial.
That 72% statistic is the engine driving almost every other crisis within the penal system right now.
How so?
Well, remand essentially means you've been accused, denied bail, and are awaiting your day in court. But when the judicial system is gridlocked, awaiting trial can mean sitting in a severely overcrowded cell for years.
I can only compare it to a waiting room with no exit doors. You get pushed into this room, the walls are literally closing in because it's packed at double or triple capacity, and nobody knows when their name is going to be called.
That's exactly what it's like.
And what happens when you pack thousands of stressed, desperate people into a room with no exit? It explodes.
Exactly. When a facility operates vastly over its design capacity, the environment becomes inherently volatile. The power dynamic actually shifts from the guards to the inmates.
And we are seeing that explosion in real time.
Yeah.
There was significant unrest at the Mahara Prison recently.
I saw that, yeah.
Police suspect this wasn't just a random riot. It was a targeted incident triggered by a drug dispute between two rival gangsters known as Pada and Satan.
Oh, wow.
And in a completely separate incident at a Negombo prison, a massive clash occurred. And a magistrate has actually had to impose a media gag order on the sensitive evidence given by a jailer regarding the event.
A gag order. Things must be really intense.
Right. Security has now been tightened across all prisons nationwide.
This brings up a critical failure in the concept of incarceration. When you have a massive population of unconvicted individuals mixed in with hardened criminals in an overcrowded space, the prison ceases to be a correctional facility.
What does it become?
It becomes a command center for organized crime.
Wait, how are guys like Pada and Satan running drug empires from inside a maximum security prison?
Because of the sheer volume of the chaos, When guards are outnumbered 50 to 1 just trying to manage basic feeding and security protocols, intensive internal policing becomes impossible.
Well, I see.
Yeah, contraband, cell phones, and narcotics just slip through the cracks. The cartels use the prisons as secure bases of operation because they know the state doesn't have the capacity to monitor them individually.
And the drug trade feeding into those prisons is constantly evolving. Sri Lanka Customs just flagged a growing link to Thailand in the narcotics trade.
Thailand.
Yeah, they issued a very specific warning that people taking holidays abroad are coming back and finding themselves slapped with severe drug charges.
The international supply chains are highly adaptive. As traditional routes get heavily policed, cartels exploit new vectors.
Like tourists.
Exactly, like civilian holidaymakers. They often turn unwitting tourists into mules.
And if those tourists get caught at the airport, they get thrown straight into that 72% pool of unconvicted remand inmates.
Adding to the backlog.
Adding another body to the waiting room with no exit doors, further overwhelming the guards who are already trying to stop Pata and Satan from starting a riot. It is an incredibly vicious cycle.
It really is.
But surely the top legal minds in the country are working around the clock to clear this backlog, right?
You would hope so, but right now the highest echelons of the legal system are paralyzed by an intense institutional battle over their own structure.
Yes. There's a massive national uproar right now, not over the 72% remand population, but over amending the retirement age of judges.
It has become a massive flashpoint.
It really has. The Bar Association of Sri Lanka, the BSL, which is essentially the most powerful union of legal professionals in the country, they are actively seeking an urgent meeting with the president to halt this.
And it's not just local pushback.
Right. The International Association of Judges, the oldest global organization representing the judiciary, has officially stepped in and urged Sri Lanka to reconsider this amendment.
The retirement age of judges might sound like just a bureaucratic HR issue to some, but it is deeply tied to the independence of the judiciary.
How does age affect independence?
If the executive or legislative branches can arbitrarily change when a judge is forced to retire, it can be perceived as a mechanism to remove unfavorable judges or pack the courts with loyalists.
Oh, wow. I didn't think of it like that.
Yeah, the international intervention shows how seriously the global legal community takes this threat to judicial independence.
And the justice minister is aggressively pushing back against the narrative, claiming that the Mahanayak Theras, the top Buddhist prelates in the country, who hold massive moral and political sway, had received the wrong information about the amendment.
That's quite a claim.
It is. So you have the justice minister, the Bar Association, international judges, and the highest religious leaders all locked in this fierce debate. Meanwhile, massive, country-altering legal cases are still grinding through this very system.
Right, some huge cases.
Former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa's writ petition has just been fixed for an order on September 22.
The juxtaposition is just stark. You have an overwhelmed court system leading directly to dangerously overcrowded prisons where cartels run riots. And while this entire pipeline is bursting at the seams, the people holding the keys to the system are locked in a political fight over their own tenure. It is a justice system struggling to process its current reality while simultaneously fighting a war over its future.
The human toll of that gridlock is hard to fathom. But as intense as these internal Sri Lankan crises are, we do not exist in a vacuum.
No, we definitely don't.
A lot of the economic relief we talked about earlier, the fuel prices, the ADB loans, it is entirely dependent on the global stage. And the geopolitics we're seeing right now are shifting at a whiplash-inducing speed.
The geopolitical ecosystem is the ultimate macro system, and because global supply chains are so tightly wound, a ripple generated thousands of miles away hits our local economy almost instantly.
Let's look at the biggest ripple today, coming out of the Middle East and the United States. Global oil prices just dropped 5% to a 3-week low.
That's a huge drop for oil.
It is. Why did oil suddenly get cheaper? Because U.S. President Donald Trump canceled a fresh planned attack on Iran. And in a massive concurrent development, Hamas has reportedly agreed to Trump's plan to disarm in Gaza. Again, just objectively reporting the facts here without taking any political sides.
Of course. So let's look purely at the mechanics of how military action dictates the global economy. When military strikes are planned in or around the Persian Gulf, global markets instantly apply a risk premium to the price of oil.
What exactly is a risk premium?
It is essentially an insurance markup built into the price of a commodity based on fear. About 20% of the world's total oil consumption passes through the Strait of Hormuz, right off the coast of Iran.
That's a massive bottleneck.
Exactly. If the market believes missiles are going to fly, they price in the risk that oil tankers will be destroyed or the strait will be closed. The price of oil shoots up, not because supply has dropped yet, but because the threat to supply has increased.
Oh, okay.
The moment the airstrike is canceled, that fear evaporates, the risk premium vanishes, and the price drops 5% immediately.
And I really want to emphasize this for you tuning in right now. We talked earlier about Sri Lanka's leaky economic bucket and the 71.7 billion rupee relief package. A single decision, a canceled airstrike halfway across the world, instantly dictates the cost of living here. Sri Lanka imports its oil.
Right. Almost all of it.
That 5% drop, determined by one world leader, directly impacts the cost of your commute, the cost of transporting the Yala harvest we discussed, and the foreign exchange reserves of the entire country.
It perfectly illustrates how local resilience is largely at the mercy of global stability. When geopolitical tensions de-escalate, energy-importing nations like Sri Lanka get a sudden vital moment of breathing room.
And the diplomatic maneuvering around these leaders is fascinating to watch. Over in Africa, Morocco has just made a massive geopolitical statement.
Oh, what did they do?
They've named their longest highway, the newly completed 1,055-kilometer Tisnit-Dakhla Expressway, the Donald J. Trump Highway.
Wow. Naming a billion-dollar piece of national infrastructure after a sitting foreign leader is a highly calculated diplomatic anchor.
It really is.
It is a permanent, physical cementing of bilateral ties, designed to ensure favorable foreign policy and trade relations for decades to come.
Meanwhile, closer to home in South Asia, we have a very delicate diplomatic dance playing out. Bangladesh has formally asked India to clarify its stance regarding exiled former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina.
That's a very tricky situation.
Very. She is apparently planning a virtual address in New Delhi, and Dhaka is demanding answers. And once again, staying totally neutral on the politics of this, but it's a huge development.
This is the friction of close proximity geopolitics. Providing a platform, even a virtual one, to an exiled leader of a neighboring country is a highly provocative move.
It tests everything.
It tests the boundaries of diplomatic immunity and regional alliances. Bangladesh is essentially forcing India to publicly declare whether they are validating the current government in Dhaka or providing safe harbor to its political rival.
It is high-stakes chess. But while all this heavy world-altering diplomacy is happening, the global news feed always throws in these wild, almost surreal anomalies that remind you how strange the world is.
Oh, I love these stories.
Over in Japan, 3 lions tragically died of suspected heat stroke at a Tokyo zoo amid extreme record-breaking heat. On the historical front, a deep-sea research team just found the wreckage of a Pan Am plane 74 years after its tragic crash.
74 years! Wow!
Yeah, and for the pop culture collectors out there, original Game of Thrones dragon eggs used in the show are heading to auction, with bidding already soaring.
As random as those stories seem, that first one, the lions at the Tokyo Zoo, circles right back to where we started today.
The weather front.
Exactly. We talked about 125 millimeters of rain collapsing earth mounds in Hatton. In Tokyo, it's unprecedented heat. It proves that extreme climate volatility is bypassing all infrastructure.
Even biological infrastructure.
Yes, even the biological infrastructure of animals designed for hot climates who simply cannot adapt to the speed of the temperature changes.
It is all connected. The physical world, the economic world, and the political world. But let's step away from geopolitics for a moment and look at an arena that has its own intense politics, massive economies, and history-making moments.
The sports world.
The world of sports.
Sports often act as a mirror to the geopolitical tensions we just discussed, sometimes with just as much money and structural power on the line.
Case in point, the global football world is currently facing an unprecedented leadership crisis. UEFA, which represents the 55 member associations across Europe, has literally threatened to completely boycott future World Cups if the current FIFA plans are approved.
That's a massive threat.
The world football boss is facing a severe, massive backlash.
I want to clarify how massive this is. This is not a disagreement over offside rules or refereeing. This is a multi-billion-dollar struggle for the absolute control of global football.
UEFA holds a lot of cards there.
They do. UEFA represents the wealthiest, most commercially powerful bloc in the sport. They have the biggest leagues and the most recognizable players.
So when they threaten a boycott, what are they actually threatening? Like, what's the real impact?
They are threatening the financial viability of FIFA itself. The World Cup is FIFA's primary revenue engine. If European teams don't participate, the broadcasting rights plummet, the sponsorships evaporate, and the entire economic model collapses.
It's the game of chicken.
It is a massive game of chicken, overscheduling, revenue distribution, and who ultimately dictates the global calendar.
It's incredible. You see the exact same power struggles in sports administration that you see in national governments. UEFA versus FIFA is just a different flavor of the diplomatic standoffs we see on the world stage.
Exactly.
And we see it locally, too, with the president meeting the SLC Transformation Committee to restructure cricket administration. Speaking of local football, FFSL President Jaswar Umar was just elected as the vice president of SAMIF, the South Asian Football Federation.
That's great news for local football.
It brings vital Sri Lankan influence to the regional administrative level. And on the pitch, we had some incredibly decisive matches. Renown absolutely demolished Young's 10-0, and Red Star down Blue Star in a crucial fixture.
A 10-0 victory at that level of competition is a statement game.
10 goals is wild.
Yeah, it shows a massive disparity in structural development between the clubs. And Jaswar Umar's election to the SAFF vice presidency is a critical win for Sri Lankan sports diplomacy.
Why is that position so important?
It ensures that when regional tournament funds and schedules are debated, Sri Lanka actually has a seat at the table.
Now let's talk about the sport that absolutely dominates the national conversation. Cricket.
Always.
The LPL 2026, the Lanka Premier League, the drama is peaking right now. And ironically, the extreme weather we talked about in our very first segment, it is dictating the outcome of a multi-million-dollar sports league.
Wow.
Rain actually sent Jaffna into the playoffs, resulting in Dambulla being knocked out entirely.
There is a deep irony there, honestly. You can have the most expensive broadcasting equipment, international franchise owners, and world-class athletes, but a single weather front can override the entire multi-million-dollar structure.
You just can't beat the weather.
No, you cannot engineer nature out of the equation.
But when the weather did clear, the Jaffna Kings were absolutely unstoppable. They hammered 221 runs to seal their third straight win, powered by an incredible knock of 95 from Ibrahim Zadran.
He was on fire.
He really was. Meanwhile, Kamindu guided Caps to a highly crucial win. On the international test front, there was a massive shockwave for India. Jasprit Bumrah has been ruled out.
Oh, that's a massive blow.
It is. But as one door closes, another opens. Aqib Nabi, hailing from Jammu and Kashmir, earned his maiden test call-up for India.
Losing Bumrah changes the entire psychological dynamic of the Indian bowling attack. I mean, he is a generational, totally irreplaceable talent.
Absolutely.
But Aqib Nabi's call-up is a phenomenal narrative. It shows the sprawling depth of the Indian domestic structure where regional talent from Jammu and Kashmir can break through to the absolute pinnacle of the sport.
Also globally, Rashid Khan is just doing what Rashid Khan does, grabbing 5 wickets for 17 runs in the 100 tournament.
Classic Rashid Khan.
Truly. And I have to take a moment to give a massive, massive shout out to the Sri Lanka women's cricket team. They just made a huge statement by comprehensively defeating Pakistan by 6 wickets in their T20I series opener.
That is fantastic news.
Also on the administrative side, the BCCI's Jay Shah achieved a major milestone in Tanzania, showing how the global footprint of the game is expanding into Africa.
I want to focus on the Sri Lanka women's team for a second, because defeating a highly structured, historically strong team like Pakistan by 6 wickets is not a fluke.
No, it's a huge win.
It is a testament to the developmental structures and funding finally paying dividends. It builds incredible momentum and psychological confidence for the squad moving forward.
You also had a major, very emotional retirement announcement in the athletics world today. Yupun Abikun, officially the fastest man in South Asia, has announced he's bringing the curtain down on his glittering career.
Yupun's legacy goes far beyond the medals he won.
What do you think his biggest impact was?
He fundamentally shattered a psychological barrier for South Asian sprinters. For decades, there was an unspoken assumption that South Asian athletes simply couldn't compete at the elite global level in the 100-meter dash.
Right.
He proved that with the right biomechanics, training infrastructure, and sheer willpower, it was possible. His retirement marks the end of a highly inspirational era for Sri Lankan athletics.
Truly, a legend who elevated the entire region. And just to wrap up the sports desk quickly, in motorsport, Malaysia's iconic Sepang circuit has been officially confirmed to host the rescheduled Formula One Bahrain Grand Prix.
Oh, that'll be a great race.
Yeah, and in the local golf scene, Rishan and Kaya have taken the commanding lead in their respective tournaments.
It's a packed agenda. But whether we are analyzing the biomechanics of a sprinter, the calendar leverage of UEFA, or the geopolitical maneuvering of a foreign policy broadcast, it all reflects that constant, unyielding push for optimization in highly competitive systems.
It really does. And looking at the clock, it is time to wrap up this massive deep dive. Today we have traversed an unbelievable breadth of information for you. We started with the immediate, visceral reality of 125 millimeters of rain, flooding local schools, washing containers out to sea, and collapsing earth mounds.
Which then tied right into the economy.
Right. We traced exactly how that physical damage forces national economic borrowing, taking us into the paradox of $200 million emergency loans running parallel to a booming tourism sector and massive corporate moves like the Dongfeng launch.
And we then explored the political machinery attempting to manage that fragile economy. We analyzed a government balancing grand constitutional promises, like abolishing the presidency, with immediate grassroots crises like collapsed drug regulations and delayed local elections.
From there, we peered into the deeply gridlocked justice system. We looked at the staggering reality of a 72% unconvicted remand population, the resulting gang violence run by cartels inside the prisons, and the simultaneous institutional infighting over the retirement ages of the judges themselves.
And finally, geopolitics.
And finally, we zoomed all the way out to watch global oil prices swing wildly based on a single canceled airstrike, ending on the multi-billion-dollar battlegrounds of global sports.
Before we go, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. Today, we've seen how interconnected vulnerability truly is. A rainstorm disrupts a national math exam, a delayed trial causes a prison riot, and a canceled airstrike halfway across the globe changes the price of our daily oil.
Right.
We have built a modern society completely optimized for speed, efficiency, and global trade, but perhaps we have done so at the cost of durability. As we continue to build these incredibly complex global and local networks, are we engineering a world that is fundamentally more resilient? Or are we simply building a world where a single point of failure can bring down the entire house of cards? Something to mull over until our next deep dive.
A brilliant question to end on. Thank you to everyone listening for joining us today on the RTV Global Network. Keep questioning the systems around you, and as always, stay curious.